Now, my first guest is Rupert Brown, who is a musician. But one of the things about listening to and making music is that it can bring about something that actually many people suffer with. It's called tinnitus. Now, this is a ringing sound in your ears, even when there's no sound going into it. So there's no music or external noise going into your ears. And it can be irritating and painful and agonizing, just really disruptive to your lives. Now, Rupert has created something that kind of lessens the way that condition affects you. Let's talk to him. Rupert, good afternoon. How are you?
Really well, thank you. Good afternoon to you too, and thanks ever so much for helping us to raise the awareness of tinnitus. All of us at T-Minus are so grateful for that, and the tinnitus community, so thank you.
You are very welcome, because I know that, and I mentioned musicians, but of course, and I was reading today, 1 in 8 people have some form of tinnitus. That is a huge number.
It's an absolutely colossal amount of people, and what we're going to find is after the dreadful situation of COVID is that as a kind of a consequence of maybe that as a side effect that we're going to have more people with that. But I think also even more importantly, I would say that as a result of isolation and feelings of deep-seated anxiety, coming out of that situation is going to be quite difficult, I think, for a lot of people. And we're going to find that there's going to be, sadly, an escalation of tinnitus, which, I would hate to be able to mention that, but this is what we're finding. So really the kind of words that we're using this week are very much deep-seated with kindness, love, and good professional information to help those people.
And you mentioned coronavirus because apparently this has been identified, tinnitus has been identified as one of the conditions that people are experiencing if they have long COVID, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something that the wonderful British Tinnitus Association have been looking into and have had research done on this. There's a paper on it and which highly suggests and says that there's going to be a massive production of tinnitus as a result of having the COVID-19, which is a dreadful kind of thing to face, particularly as if you've just come out of that situation yourself. But I think the isolationism, I think, is going to be catastrophic, sadly, for people, which is why all of the organisations and agencies around the world are raising awareness this week to let people know that they really, truly are not on their own. And this is where our T-minus sound therapy really comes in, because along with really, really good clinical professional information, good solid sound therapy is really, really important. It can really help people. And what we're focusing on a lot of this week as well is people that are sadly new to experiencing tinnitus, which can be so frightening because sadly as well the doctors aren't able to see people, so they're sending people away. They're dealing with what they consider to obviously be for them the most important kind of subjects, but the kind of mental awareness of tinnitus and the explosion that's going to happen as a result of what is going on now, as I said, will be and it's going to be quite difficult for a lot of people, I think.
I mean, most of us will have experienced some kind of thing where you go to a club or you go to a gig or you're listening to loud music, and then after that you have this kind of ringing in your ears.
Yes.
Tinnitus is it different? Is it just continuous that? Or how do you experience it?
I experienced it coming off of stage. I was a drummer playing for Roy Ayers at Ronnie Scott's Jazz Club, and I had 8 different tinnitus sounds, and I had deafness in that ear. So it wasn't like any sounds were being... I couldn't hear anything, so there was nothing to mask it. So I literally had this solid bank of 8 different sounds. If I can sort of describe it, it felt like I was in the middle of a cold winter's ocean, like somewhere like the Bishop's Rock Lighthouse. And there was a helicopter overhead, there was a plane taking off, there was somebody sharpening knives next to my ears, then there was the waves, and then this crashing thunder, and that's what I had for 24/7. And I'm not a religious person. I'd say I have a kind of a spirituality about me and a non-religious faith that allows me to open the door in the day, but what I wrote on my door and on my wall coming out of the jazz club in my bedroom, I wrote on my wall, "Please God, make this go away." It was absolutely horrendous.
Wow.
It was horrendous.
And was that continuous, Rupert? Was that just the whole time?
It never left me. It never left me until I worked on my own sound therapy. So I worked on these different tape recorders, like boogie boxes that we had in the 80s. I had them, and I had 3 different ones set up in my bedroom, which were kind of, I was experiencing white noise. I'd press play, record, pause, and I'd turn up the volume and the tone, and I got this wonderful, which I now know to be white noise and pink noise and blue noise, which were really great. So I would bathe myself in those sounds every evening, and after a year, those 8 sounds dissipated and turned into just 1. And I was able to carry on with my career. I mean, I do music all the time. I teach, I do sessions, I'm producing, and through the sound therapy and the good information, my tinnitus does not trouble me at all. I have it all the time, but it's out of 10, I would say it's on a steady 1 or 2 after a session. So I know that you can successfully
So that is a huge change to your life. That is a huge change.
Oh, it's catastrophic when it first happens. But I would not regret a moment of it in many respects looking at it now, because I've learned so much about myself and I've learned so much about the condition. I'm not an expert, i.e. I'm not a consultant, but I'm an expert at having tinnitus, and all of us are in the community. And that's really what I want to do this week, is to involve the discussion, which is what you're doing, which is, thank you so much for allowing the discussion to take place. It's wonderful.
Rupert, we're going to play some of that soundscape that you created this, I guess. You created this.
Yes, I did.
Yes. Just tell us something about how this works. If someone has tinnitus, how does this help them?
So which soundscape are you playing, please, first? Do you know what it's called?
Good question. Oh, there you go.
Okay. Okay, so what I created here was I wanted to raise awareness. So this isn't a sound therapy, but what it is it highlights different people's tinnitus. Some of those sounds were my own, and some of them were people that I've worked with that I was helping in the early stages of developing my sound therapy for the app. So what you're going to play now is very harrowing. This is tinnitus that people experience.
Okay. Should we not play that then?
Yes, I would love you to play it. But what I would say is it comes with a tiny little warning, which is it's not going to happen to you unless you don't go to loud gigs. Please prevent it. Wear earplugs, okay? Thanks.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so this is what some people will experience.
Yes.
When they have tinnitus, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that is pretty... Okay, I think that's enough. I think that's enough.
I had a lot of those sounds myself. Yes.
Yeah, and that and I mean I've sort of had that kind of short term sound in my ears before, as I mentioned.
Yes.
But how do you, other than sort of getting this therapy, what would the doctor say to you if you went to them and said, "I've got this ringing sound. It is driving me crazy. I cannot get rid of it." How do you? What is the general sort of treatment for that? Is there anything?
Well, yeah, there is a distinct path to wellness, but sadly, and I don't blame the doctors for this at all, but they may not be trained with tinnitus or people with tinnitus. So, say for example, I have tinnitus. I think I've diagnosed myself. I've read a little book about it, and so I think I've got tinnitus. I go to the doctor. The doctor might know a little bit about tinnitus, but they're not an expert, sadly, but that's fine. What you can do if they then don't press it, because they might say, well, you have to live with it, well, that's fine, except that you might be suffering from trauma because it's a terrible thing that's happened to you. So it's immediately important to get the help. So what you do is you press the doctor in a nice, gentle way, and you say, I'd like to book an appointment at the hospital with an audiologist and an ENT specialist. Now, the ENT specialist, you'll have to wait for quite a few months, but with an audiologist who has hearing therapy and tinnitus experience, mostly, you will only see them within 5 weeks, and it's that critical time between now and the 5 weeks. You can do so much to alleviate the tension and the stresses and associated anxieties that come with tinnitus in that first 5 weeks. You can do so much to help people in that first initial period.
And you mentioned wearing earplugs, for example, if you're planning to go to a very loud gig, which nobody's doing at the moment.
No.
But that is maybe the one advantage of the situation. I don't know. But is there other situations where we should protect ourselves? Do you think that is a trigger then to tinnitus? You know, that persistent, loud sound.
Very much
is
so.
that partly
Sorry.
what's causing it?
Yes, it is. It does. But, you know, sadly, you know, in some cases you can have a sudden bereavement or a loss of a marriage or something that happens that is significant that might have a negative effect on your life. That can also trigger tinnitus, which is the problem,
right.
you know, because, so then, therefore, it's not a hearing loss-related condition sometimes. So that becomes another problem in itself. So my advice would be to be sensible, you know, do those things that sometimes you massively enjoy, like maybe if you're going to an AC/DC concert, maybe put the earplugs in, but occasionally, maybe halfway through the set for 20 minutes, take them out, let the sound in. I think the trouble is that we have to be very careful. So if we know that we're going to a very loud sound, obviously you wear hearing protection, that's important. But for certain things and for times where the exposure isn't for a greater period of time, let the sound in. And actually for those people that might be suffering hyperacusis, which is a oversensitivity to sound, which can really exacerbate tinnitus, part of my road to wellness was to let sound back in. And as a drummer, you can imagine that would be catastrophic. So that's where I know that good information and sound therapy really works, because I play a loud instrument constantly. So
how do you keep playing the drums when you are on the one hand deaf in one ear and on the other hand have tinnitus? How is that possible without sort of driving yourself insane?
Well, the thing is that I recovered my hearing because I perforated it, so my hearing came back after a few months.
Oh, okay.
So I hear pretty well. What I do is, and I think this is the critical thing, is happiness, strangely enough. I'm happy playing music, and the hearing therapist that I saw, Penny Stannard, an amazing woman, she basically gave me the confidence through great information and through my own sound therapy to be able to get back on the saddle again, so to speak, and allow sound to come in. And it made me happy. That took away the anxiety. And when you take away the anxiety, in a sense, you're taking away the rocket fuel. And that's what tinnitus loves. It loves anxiety. It loves tension. It loves all those things. Yeah. It doesn't like happiness, and it doesn't like excitement that makes you feel great. That's a really great reliever of tinnitus, is happiness and personal well-being. Essential.
Yeah,
which is why
that's really interesting. Yeah. I didn't know that the sort of psychological link. I didn't know about that. I knew about the sort of loud noise link and the persistent noise and everything, but I didn't know that there was a psychological link. But you can sort of imagine that, because if you are tense, then you get those sort of stress situations, don't you? And they can. I mean, my thing is that it triggers migraine headaches and things like that when I get stressed. So I can really. Yeah, I can work out from that I imagine that tinnitus is also one of those very similar sort of conditions there.
Very much so. And when you have your tinnitus under control, and it really is possible, you can use it as a kind of a stress monitor. So for me, if it gets a little bit out of order, which it does occasionally if I'm doing a session or I'm excited about drumming and I've maybe overdone it a bit, I know what to go back to. It's like the mental processes are really important. So it's really important to do the things that make you feel happy. Go for walks in nature. Have the conversation with your partner. Allow your family that you love to let yourself into the situation that you might be having. The discussion is vital. It really is so important, which is why outside of the lockdown, when we come out again, and hopefully soon we're completely away from all of this, is that we are going to be really trying to help those people that have come out of isolation, that have had maybe their tinnitus has come on as a result of it. It may not be as a result of the COVID. They may not have had the COVID. They may have had that feeling of high anxiety and, like you're saying, that high sensitivity to just things that are stimulating them in maybe a negative way. So, we're
really interesting. Thank you, Rupert.
Sorry.
No, tell us where we can find out more, because you've gone through some really interesting, you've covered some really interesting stuff.
So you can find us on t-info, That's our website. And we have a lovely wellness app on the Apple medium, which is called the Tinnitus Wellness app. And you can find us on the Apple Store. And we have a Facebook group, so we encourage discussion on that also. And we're having an Instagram, which is Tinnitus Minus. And we have live discussion groups twice a month. So we're all about having the discussion now and to really try and help those people that might be struggling at the moment, certainly right now at the moment, as we've been talking about with COVID-19 and, the associated problems that can arise from things like that.
Yeah, perfect. Great to talk to you. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Really interesting. Thank you, Rupert.
Thank you very much. Thanks again. That's lovely. Thank you very much.
You take care. Bye-bye. Rupert Brown there. So Tinnitus Awareness Week. It is Tinnitus Awareness Week this week, but you can find out so much more. If you just look at Rupert Brown on the BBC website, there's a whole feature on him as well about this soundscape that he came up with to help people deal better with tinnitus. And I know it's something that, for example, like the DJ Jo Wiley has spoken about how it affects her. And I mean, I've had it to a really, really small degree where, you leave somewhere and you just have that ringing in your ears. But to have that permanently and yet not have any sound going into your... Well, I don't know how you cope with that because during your sleep and trying to get to sleep and all that sort of stuff, it just must be an awful situation. So I recommend looking up this. There's so much available now online. If you can get online, that is just really, really interesting stuff. And just look up Rupert Brown and you find out the things that he is doing to try to sort of counteract the whole issue with tinnitus. It's BBC Radio Bristol just after 2:30 on Monday after.